Hello, and you're listening to Your Majesty's Secret Podcast. I like my podcast shaken, not stirred. Only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. If you'd like to check out more shows, go to foureyedradio.com.
Bond. James Bond. Shaken, not stirred.
Utter one more syllable and I'll have you killed.
I thought Christmas only comes once a year.
For your eyes only, darling.
I never joke about my work, 007.
For England, James?
Come in, Univex. James Bond here.
Am I going to have a problem with you, Bond?
Allow me to introduce myself.
You're that secret agent! That English secret agent from England!
No, you're cleverer than you look.
Still better than looking cleverer than you are.
My God, what's Bond doing?
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
007 reporting for duty.
Hello, the name's Berkeley, Ziggy Berkeley, from Cinema on the Rocks. And with me, for the 50th time, is Eric Dewey from Socially Awkward Studios. And you are listening to a very special episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network.
You can't see this because you can't see this because there's no video here, but there's streamers and balloons falling down from both of our studio areas right now.
Yes, that's right. It took us a little longer than we'd expected it to by quite a bit, but we finally made it to 50 episodes. So, thank you, because we certainly could not have done it without all of you. We started out as something very small, and we became one of the two most popular shows in the Four-Eyed Radio Network, and we now have an audience following of people from all around the world, and that's all of you. So, we're here at number 50 because you're there listening to us. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Because
of that, we would like to announce our Fan Appreciation Contest. Yes, we finally made it to 50, and we couldn't have done it without you, so we'd like to show our appreciation with our brand new contest. What we'd like you to do is, as usual, go to hermajestiespod.com/contest and answer 3 questions for us on the entry form. 1. What is your favorite episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast thus far? 2. What do you like best about our show overall? And 3, which one of our lists would you like us to revisit, in other words, redo, first after the release of Spectre? So in other words, do the list all over again, except this time considering Spectre in the mix. And that's all there is to it. And we want to hear from as many of you as we can, even if you've won or been mentioned on the air before. So everyone out there is eligible to enter to win. So please go to hermajestiespod.com/contest, and we will be reading some of our favorite entries in a future episode, and we will choose a top secret number of winners to receive a top secret prize. And the answers to question number 3 may help to determine future programming. And if you don't go to the forum, you can also just email us directly at contest@hermajestiespod.com, and you just might win.
Yes. Just one word of caution. If you use the email address directly, make sure that you've included all of the answers. On the form, it'll be easy because you'll have to fill out all of the form in order to get past it and submit it. On the email, if you forget something, you're missing out possibly. So if you do use the email address directly, make sure you've checked off all 3 boxes on your checklist.
And as usual, please include your full real name with your entry and your full real address. We will, of course, not be reading these out loud on the air. We only ever read your first name and the city you're from. We just need those other bits of information so we can send you your prizes if we choose you as a winner. All entries must be received by the end of the day, in whatever time zone you live in, on Saturday, October 31st, 2015. That's Halloween, folks. Winners will be selected within a week of the deadline. That would probably be when Eric is coming to visit me to come see the premiere of a certain movie that's in the first week of November. I can't imagine what that is.
I don't know. What is coming out the first weekend of November? Movies. Oh, man, I'm gonna have to look it up because I have no idea. I'm just kidding. It's Spectre. Come on, guys.
Of course. So, please think of your answers to those 3 questions. Again, number 1, what is your favorite episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast thus far? Number 2, what is it that you like best about our show overall? And 3, which one of our lists would you like us to revisit or redo first after the release of Spectre. That's all there is to it. So please go to hermajestyspod.com/contest and you can win.
All right. I can't wait to hear those responses. It's going to be fun. We're obviously going to have to redo the majority of the list at some point as we go along because, a whole new movie to add to it. But I am curious which one people want to hear about first. So
I can think of which ones I'd like to redo myself, but this will be interesting.
I couldn't even make the decision, like if I were entering this, and which I can't obviously. So I feel bad for the people entering it on one condition, because my choice would be based on what I saw in Spectre. Because I'd be like, "Ooh, I really want to talk about this, so let's do that list." But we won't have that option available to us, and neither will you. So suck it up.
Unless, of course, you happen to live in the UK, in which case Spectre will have premiered a couple of days before the final deadline of the contest.
Oh, there you go. So if you want to watch a crappy cam version of it, just answer this question. No, don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Because one, it's awful, and two, it's really awful. Just don't.
Plus, come on, this is some big Hollywood art we want to support with our cash. So please support it with your cash. But that is the Fan Appreciation Contest. You have a few weeks to enter. Again, it's end of the day, October 31st, 2015, and we'll be drawing winners about a week later. But in the meantime, we now have a very special episode for number 50 of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast. It's one that more than one of you has asked, when the hell are you going to do this? And it's one we almost did once before, but it is something that I know I, for one, wanted to have as something very special. And that is, of course, the list of our favorite James Bond movies.
A.K.A. The List. Or The List, depending on where you're from and how you pronounce it.
Or, just what time of day it is in some cases, if you have an incredible wandering accent. Not saying that I know anyone like that whenever I look in the mirror, but, no, what we originally, because I didn't want it just to be a quick and dirty thing that we did right after we did the synopses of all the films in the first place. That just seemed wrong. Yeah. I wanted it to be some kind of landmark moment for us. And the first thought was when Eric and I finally recorded a show in person when I went to Phoenix earlier this year. But time constraints got in the way and we only had time to do one show. And so we did the comedy show and that was it. And after that, we decided that we would do this for episode 50 and starting up our run into Spectre, which is now just 4 episodes away. Now, what we did is we took our usual set of criteria, the 23, one of the last few episodes in which we can say this, the 23 official James Bond Eon productions, going from Dr. No up through Skyfall, and we also include Never Say Never Again, just because it makes Eric itch. And we rated our favorites from 24 to 1. Now, I wanted to make very clear that this is a favorites list, not a critical best list.
Yes. Basically, my criteria primarily going into this list was, if I'm looking at my collection, if I'm looking at all 24 of these films on the shelf and I'm thinking I want to watch a Bond movie right now, which one am I reaching for first? That's my number one. Which one will always be the one that I just, this one. And then from there, like, okay, well, I just watched that one, so now which one? And, okay, now which one? And so on and so forth down to the bottom of the list where it's like, it's probably going to be sitting on my shelf for quite some time before I get around to watching it again. So that was my basic criteria. I did tinker with some things, some of it, some movies get bumped up based on, certain qualities, and certain movies get bumped down based on certain qualities. So it ought to be interesting. The middle of this list was very difficult for me.
Yeah, I actually found that the top was harder than I thought too, and the bottom is going to be interesting. But yeah, it's very much a subjective list, but I would also argue that any critical best list, once you get to a certain point, is subjective no matter what the talking heads and pundits try to tell you. Like, sure, you have the AFI top 250 films of all time list, but you know what? It's an opinion poll, okay? It's an opinion poll. They had the biggest humdrum when Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo suddenly overtook Orson Welles' Citizen Kane as the best movie ever made in the poll. But you know what? It's a poll. Yep. They're both fantastic films. I mean, that is splitting hairs. And once you get to that kind of hair splitting, it's subjective. You can't say that there's an objective standard when you get to that kind of hair splitting. You're looking at the best stuff. And really, when it comes to a series that we all love, like the 007 series, all of this is the best stuff. There is not one movie on this list that I can say I hate in the form of, if it's on, I'll turn it off, I'll walk away. If it's on, I'll watch all of them. It doesn't matter which one. And as one of our longest-running fans, Tile, mentioned in a comment on our site, we love all of these movies, warts and all. So even number 24 on our lists, whatever that happens to be, I know I, for one, would still consider it a movie I'd watch.
Yeah. Like I said, it's going to be the last one on my shelf that I pick, but it's still on my shelf. There's a lot of movies out there in the world that are not going to make that I'm not making room for on my shelf. Okay, none of these 24 films are getting bumped off the shelf anytime soon. They're all going to be there in their place of honor, no less. So yes, while we will talk crap about the lower levels of this list, believe us when we say we still love all these films. So
yeah.
If one of your favorites happens to be mentioned low on this list, we do apologize for the difference of opinion, but we're not, saying it's a bad movie. We're just saying it's not quite as good in our mind as the other ones. So that's it.
And the other thing that I think is really great about all of these movies is they're highly rewatchable. I mean, over the course of these 50 shows that we've done so far, we've watched the entire series several times over, and many other movies more than that. So it's just something that you can always come home to it. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of my favorite hotel that I like to stay at, their hotel manager happens to be a James Bond fan, and there's always a Bond movie playing in the lobby, which I think is awesome.
Nice.
So shout out to my friends at the Triton in San Francisco. But they're all very rewatchable. Like, I recognize Citizen Kane as a fantastic movie. In fact, one of the great experiences that I've had as a cinephile is going to see Citizen Kane on a big screen at a theater that it premiered at originally back in the day.
Nice.
And had orchestra pit and everything, and I don't own it, and I probably never will, because it's just not that highly rewatchable for me. If it comes to a classic movie theater in my area, I'll probably see it. If it's on Turner Classic Movies one night that I happen to not be busy, I'll watch it. But it's nothing I feel compelled to own. Whereas something like the Bond movies, Casablanca, the Star Wars movies, I own all those because I always want to go back to them.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Citizen Kane, actually, funny story. I was working at the movie theater when they did the re-release of that. So I had the distinct pleasure of dropping the print of Citizen Kane, which anybody who's working in the theater right now, who's ever worked in the theater back when we actually had prints, is cringing right now, because dropping a print is pretty much the worst thing you can do at a movie theater. And we dropped the print of Citizen Kane, and that was not a fun night. Re-reeling those bad boys just to rebuild it on the platter again. It was not a fun time. Needless to say, my sit-through of it to make sure that we had rebuilt it right was not entirely pleasurable for me, because I was furious that I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning, having worked all day, and now just sitting through this movie to make sure I didn't mess it up when I put it back together again.
And yet it's a good movie.
Not saying it isn't.
And just to do a little quick shameless self-promotion, not that I don't do that all the time, but if you want to get a little more insight into how I think, I do have a biannual list that I come up with on my site, cinemaontherocks.com, of 18 essential films where if I was stuck on a lifeboat, I'm thinking a very well-apportioned lifeboat with a full bar, nice bedroom set. If you've seen Prometheus, Charlize Theron's Little Escape Pod, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Something like that, where I could only have 18 movies with me, and believe me, it took me forever to come up with that number. What movies would I pick to have with me for 2 years? So I come up with that list every 2 years. I've come up with 2 of them so far. So if you want to check that out, go to cinemaontherocks.com and click on the lists header and check that out. You'll be able to see a little bit of how I think. And of course, there's a Bond movie on each of those lists. Now, with that in mind, without any further ado, let's get going with, one more thing as we go through our list. We had thought it might be cool to poll the other hosts on the Four Eyed Radio Network for what their favorite James Bond movies were, and as we came across them on our list, mention them and talk about their shows a little bit. Turns out that our Four Eyed Radio hosts are all one person, apparently. No, not really, but almost all of them said the exact same thing. So it wasn't quite as interesting as I thought it would be, but we will bring that up as whoever mentions a movie that one of them mentioned first, we'll bring that up, talk about it. And some of our hosts weren't able to participate because they said they hadn't seen enough or weren't fans at all. Renfro, I'm so disappointed in you.
It is decidedly not Fro-Life.
No. But now, without any further ado, which one of us wants to start with the bottom of the list?
Dun, dun, dun. Well, I don't think the very bottom of my list is going to be of much surprise to anyone, to you or to anyone who's ever heard any of these shows. I think my bottom three, I think, are going to be of no surprise to anybody. People might be wondering just exactly what order they go in, but other than that, it's pretty much going to be, fairly easy. So, if you don't mind, I will go ahead and start with number 24. Well, I do love the chickens. I don't have that much love for the film. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I'm sorry, all of you lovers of this film out there, it has its qualities, but it's still the last Bond movie that I will turn to when I want to watch Bond flick. So that is my number 24, On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
You realize that not only about a quarter to a third of our audience, but also the San Diego chicken just took a hit out of.
Oh no. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys.
The chickens are very disappointed. They question your judgment. Now, with that said, the bottom of my list is halfway full of no surprises. But I think 2 out of the bottom 4, and certainly the order in which they're placed, are going to be surprises to you. Because I think that for most people who have listened to the show all the way through, or even halfway through, however many you've heard, you're probably pretty sure you can guess what the bottom of my list is going to be. And while it wouldn't necessarily have been, to most thought, what Eric said, it would still be pretty easy to predict. And in fact, the version of this list I wrote back in May, it would have been the predictable answer. Now, that's what's interesting about these lists. Any list we've ever done, whatever we do now, if we did the same list 3 months from now, it would be different. That's just how it is. These are subjective. With that in mind, at number 24, I pick Quantum of Solace.
Whoa! Okay. All right. Wow. It's pretty early in the episode, but I question your judgment, sir. I was surprised at how low Quantum of Solace made it on my list. And we won't be talking about this movie again for quite some time, if that tells you anything.
I will tell you exactly why it's at the bottom of my list, and I hope you'll understand at that point. The reason is that when I looked at this list and I gave my criteria, okay, what movie am I going to reach for? It's what movie am I going to reach for to watch by itself. Quantum of Solace is not a standalone movie. Yes, because we know everything backwards and forwards, it makes sense to us. But if you're coming in cold, it really only makes half sense on its own. Now, when I watched in prep for this list again, I took my own advice and I watched it as a back-to-back, literally only 5 minutes in between to pour myself another drink, double feature with Casino Royale. And as a double feature, they're fantastic. But on its own, I don't think I'll ever watch Quantum of Solace on its own again unless I'm asked to by somebody else.
Wow.
It's just, to me, it is not a movie that I want to reach for by itself. It's too much part and parcel with the one that came before it. And it's the only way that I find it as enjoyable. So as a standalone film, yeah, I'm just not picking it up. So Quantum of Solace is my number 24.
Wow. All right. I thought for sure one of the surprises I possibly thought that we were going to have on this list was that I thought that one was going to appear much higher on your list than on mine. And instead it is quite a bit different than that. So that's very interesting.
And then again, I did kind of surprise you also with the same movie on our music list because of the stripper pole music, and I suppose that has something to do with it too, now that I think about it.
You weren't a fan of that track, I know, and
Yeah.
At least it wasn't Madonna. I mean, on the bright side. If there is a bright side to take away from this, folks. All right, so what then do you have at number 23? Any more bombshells for us?
Maybe for you. And possibly for some members of our audience, but I think based on some commentary we've gotten, a few other members of our audience are gonna dig with this one. On the one hand, this movie, and I'm pretty much going to spoil it for you with this sentence, has one of the coolest overall villains ever. Unfortunately, he's not in the movie very much. He's considered a subplot, and instead we have to go around on this wild goose chase that's just not very interesting with a really poorly written Bond character, and oh goody, we get to see the racist sheriff again. So I must be talking about the slide whistle Man with the Golden Gun at number 23.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Wowie zowie. Okay. Wow. All right. Right off the bat, 1-2 punch of question judgment. Wow. That was one that I thought we would probably have somewhere near the same. Like it's not one that I assumed would be way up at the top or way at the bottom, but I thought that we were going to be a little bit closer on that one. But wow.
Yeah, the shortened feature film with Christopher Lee as Scaramanga, that's cool. This other dumb crap, especially the part with the world's dumbest Bond girl, yeah, no, just no. And the characterization of Bond was just terrible. And yeah, so I don't find I reach for this one very often. So at number 23, for me, The Man with the Golden Gun. But again, in both of these instances, trash them though I am in the minutia here, if it's on, I'll watch it. But I won't reach for it on purpose. So, all right. What do you have at number 23, sir, as if I can't guess?
I was about to say, my number 23 is going to be much less of a surprise to anyone who's ever listened to the show. You even mentioned when we talked about how this list was created, and that is the one Bond film that is only even almost a Bond film just by virtue of its star. The non-Eon production of Thunderball. I mean, I'm sorry, Never Say Never Again. This movie has a few redeeming features. There's some cool, video arcade action. There's some cool, you have Connery, of course. It's always a plus. Even old Connery is still fun. I'm still okay with that. But for the most part, it's just not one that I turn to, And when it comes right down to it, if I'm going to watch any Bond film, I'll watch almost any Eon production before I watch this one. Save the chickens. So, my number 23, to nobody's shock and surprise, Never Say Never Again.
I'm so not shocked and surprised that I couldn't question your judgment even if I wanted to. So, what do you have at number 22, sir?
Moving on to number 22 is the other half of our abomination episode. Obviously, we can't call it an abomination and then put it very high on the list. So for me, Die Another Day is firmly planted near the bottom of the list. I will say that had I done this list 2 months ago, well, actually, if I hadn't been tweaking it for the last 2 months, I should say, this one might have made it lower. I might have even put this directly, I might have even put Never Say Never Again above Die Another Day, but having rewatched it for our contest winner with that new eye towards it, it makes it just that slightly bit more watchable. To put that fan theory in place that Bond is basically making all of this up as he goes along, it almost makes it palatable. Not, fully 100%, but almost. And it makes it more fun, for sure. And so it bumps it up by about one spot. So number 22, Die Another Day.
All right. That brings us to my number 22.
It does indeed. Are you going to shock me some more? Going to hit me with a Skyfall here or something?
No, not yet. He's just so fun to twitch. It's just, I could throw Zardoz in the list.
You're like, wait a minute, that's not even a Bond movie. What are you doing? Oh my gosh, what are you doing to me here?
No, finally, one that's going to come as a shock to absolutely nobody. And that is, I love the chickens too, but I don't love Lazenby. I hate Lazenby. I just can't stand Lazenby. And so, I know he's got his fans. I know the movie's got its fans. And much as I love the chickens, and as much of a crush as I still have on Diana Rigg, On Her Majesty's Secret Service lands at the number 22 spot, because I'm not reaching for it very often.
All right. like you said, no big surprise. Almost, well, I mean, I'm surprised that it was as far up as 22 on the list, given only what you did choose as 24 and 23, but not surprised that this is near the bottom of the list.
And number 21, I think I am actually going to be dropping a bombshell. Because this is the last tweak I did to the list, as in switching out this spot and the one above it. I've been going back and forth on it, and finally, just before we started the show, I cemented it. And I shocked myself. The only thing that Eric and I have been telling each other back and forth before, because as all of our regular listeners know, Eric and I don't talk to each other about what our answers are before we do an episode. But one thing we both agreed on is we both questioned our own judgments. As in, I questioned mine, he questioned his, as we came up with these. And this is one where I'm questioning my own judgment, and yet I know why it happened. And it shocks me coming at it from the outside, but I know why I did it, because I rewatched most of the series in a very short time span as we were getting ready for this list. And one of the standards I also went with is, how easy is it for me to be distracted to do something else while this movie is playing? And there was, I've seen all of these a million times. Mm-hmm. I've got them mostly memorized, so I can freely get up, use the bathroom without pausing, feed the cat, whatever, and just do housework if I want to. But a lot of movies, of course, you just can't do that. You mean to, but you sit down and you never get up again and you just watch the damn movie. But out of all of the Bond films, there's one that was the easiest, by far, to get up and do something else while it was playing. So as much as it has a very treasured point in history, and as much as I, for one, do love that open pit nuclear reactor, at number 21, the easiest of the Bond films for me to get up and do housework during is Dr. No.
All right. I am a little surprised. Although again, it's one of those ones that I thought I was going to have it far lower on my list than you. And to find out that you have it quite a bit below me is kind of a little bit shocking. But just because it's the first doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. It does have its moments, but let's be honest, it's not even Connery's best. So how can it be the best? So,
and the Bond formula, I mean, they hadn't figured it out yet. It's a fairly standard 1960s movie at that point, and I just find it really easy to get up and do stuff while it's playing.
All right.
Not saying it's bad.
Fair enough.
I mean, I didn't turn it off, but so that's my number 21.
All right. Well, fair enough. I question your judgment slightly, only because I really thought that I thought you were going to question my judgment as to how low it was, and we're going to get to it in a little while over here. So my number 21. Now, this is when I want to preface this by saying I still feel this movie is, in general, underrated in the Bond franchise. I think if you asked a lot of other people, that this movie would probably be even lower on their list than it is on mine.
Are you going to break my heart?
I hope not. I hope not. This one, okay, here's the thing. There's a 2-pack here, but I feel the other one was a lot better than this one. So I have to choose this one as my lower one. And again, it's one of those ones that I thought it was going to end up higher on my list because I do like this movie and I do feel that it's underrated in general, in the general public. But going through the list, there are just, 20 other movies that I will turn to before I turn to this one. And so that would be Timothy Dalton's second and final turn as James Bond in License to Kill.
I question your judgment, sir.
I'm very sorry. Well,
no, you're not. You're not sorry.
All right, so I'm not sorry. What you gonna do about it? So I guess that brings me to my number 20. Mm-hmm. This one, I fear I may be breaking your heart a little bit, because this movie does have things that you very much enjoy. And again, we're already into the movies that I feel I have to justify their place on this list because they're good movies. Well, like we said, all of these movies are good movies. We love the Bond franchise, so of course we love all these movies. This is the movie that I feel had some of the most wasted potential, though.
You are going to break my heart.
I feel that there could have been more to this film, and that it wasn't necessarily realized to its full extent, and that's what breaks my heart about it. Primarily, you let walking be walking, okay? When you have walking, you let walking be walking. When you dial back walking, you get a subpar villain. When you have a subpar villain, you have a subpar movie. And so as much as it pains me, I do have to put A View to a Kill at my number 20. Just the combination.
I question your
it has to be
soul.
done.
I question your soul.
The combination of the shitty chemistry between Bond and Grace Jones. You have the or Mayday. I'm using one character name, one actress name. I don't know why I'm doing that. And then you have the walk-in dialed back, and just the ridiculousness of the plot. I can get past because it is a Bond movie. That's fine, and it does have some great moments. I love the blimps. I love the Golden Gate Bridge being featured and used in a Bond movie, not just there as backdrop. They actually used it. Same with the Eiffel Tower. Very cool. But again, there's just, when it comes right down to it, there's 19 other movies that I will turn to before I pop that one in. So I knew that one. I had a feeling anyway that one I was going to have much lower on my list than you had on yours. And so for once, I'm not surprised.
I still question your soul.
Wow, that's pretty rough. That's going a little far, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe it is. Sorry.
It's okay, I suppose. So I think that brings us to your number 20.
Yep, and I bet Eric's been wondering, when the hell is he finally going to say it? Because let's be honest, everybody who's listened to this show for more than a couple episodes was probably sure I would have this at the bottom. However, in my defense, when I came up with this list in May, it was at the bottom. But, Ning Shin, this is your fault. This is all your fault. I just want to let you know that. Because thanks to Ning Shin's fan theory that we did discuss during our Question Judgments episode not too long ago, Die Another Day became a lot more fun to watch. And I don't think I'll ever be able to watch it without that fan theory in mind ever again. And so, even though I think the villain is stupid, even though I hate Halle Berry with a passion, even though it's just cheap and annoying, that fan theory just makes it fun. And because of our friend Ning Shin, Die Another Day is now my number 20 instead of my number 24.
All right. What do you have in the coveted number 19 spot? I have no idea why it would be coveted, but,
Well, somebody covets it, because this is the first time we're mentioning a movie that someone else from the Four-Eyed Radio Network family declared as their favorite James Bond movie. So, at my number 19, I have one that Chris Adams, who was Eric's former co-host on Science and Beer, which used to be a show that Eric and Chris did where they discussed, guess what? Science and Beer. It's actually a very good show. I was sorry when you weren't able to do any more episodes. I kind of hope it comes back at some point.
No spoilers, but there has been talk.
Excellent.
Scheduling conflicts are crazy. You think it's hard to get me on just me when you were almost wide open. Imagine two people who both have schedules like mine, but not synchronized.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. But Chris Adams, his favorite Bond film is my number 19, You Only Live Twice. As far as Chris's response, he said that it's kind of got it all. Bond dies and lives again to exact revenge. Little Nelly, underground volcano base, Russians, ninjas, Connery as Bond as a Japanese guy, Spectre, Blofeld. It's kind of the perfect Bond film. And Chris, I respect your opinion. I don't dig on it as much.
Respect your opinion, but question your judgment, sir. No, I'm surprised this one's as low on the list for you. I will admit that it's quite a bit higher for me. This was one that I thought would probably be in the middle of yours, not at the bottom third. But I don't question your judgment too much, just a little.
It's just one of those where, and this is one that would have been higher had we done the list right after we discussed all the Bond movies, when we did our run-throughs of each one individually at the beginning of the series.
Right.
But as our discussions have gone, and I've thought about it more and more, I like Donald Pleasance as Blofeld less and less. And the dubbing gets on my nerves more and more. And I never thought Little Nelly was as cool as everyone else did. I mean, Little Nelly's all right.
It's but Little Nelly.
I know, but I know.
How dare you, sir? I question your soul. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be perfectly fair. I think I would have totally earned it on this selection. But, it's a good movie. I do enjoy it, but kind of like with Dr. No, I found that I could get up and I could do stuff while it was still playing and I didn't have to hit pause. It's one of those that's easier to walk away from for me. And I find that I don't reach for it on my own very often unless I'm thinking about something for the show. So at my number 19, You Only Live Twice.
All right. Well, fair enough. However, I question your judgment slightly. That's all I can say.
And what do you have at number 19, sir?
So for number 19 for me, and this is one that I know a lot of people do enjoy this film. I know this is one that, for me, we were even told when we did the first run-through on this one that maybe we were harping on things a little too much, but I still feel that it loses so much of what it could be just based on
I'm placing a bet with myself right now, by the way.
Just based on, the blatant, flagrant racism in this movie, and it's just, it makes it really hard to watch sometimes, and then, of course, there is the villain's death, which is just so bad. There have been times when I've thought about popping this movie in to watch, and then remembered what happens to the villain and thought, oh, no, never mind. I'm not going to subject myself to 2 hours just for that payoff. So for me, and I do have to say that somehow we managed to both hit on number 19, it looks like. We did have another member of the 4-Eyed Radio Network, this time Mike Moses Kennedy, who's part of the Pitch Please podcast, which hopefully will be making a comeback soon. I know they've had some trouble getting it recorded, but hopefully that will be coming back in the near future, I believe.
And what is that show about?
Pitch Please is a comedic version of Shark Tank, where people come in and pitch absolutely ridiculous business ideas to 3 comedians who then tear apart their completely ridiculous business propositions. It's really funny, actually, and they do it live on stage at Stand Up Scottsdale in Scottsdale, Arizona. But it is just an absolutely fantastic show, and I encourage everybody to check it out on the 4-Eyed Radio Network.
You can check out any of the other shows that the 4-Eyed Radio Network hosts at 4eyedradio.com. Just go through the site. Every one of the shows, from our show to all the anything else, is available for your perusal. So, but what did Mike have to say about?
Mike, in addition to being a comedian and a podcaster, is also a private investigator. So he said, well, as a private investigator, Bond has been a big influence in his life, and that his favorite is Live and Let Die. Almost for the exact reasons that I don't like it as much. It does have, some of this is good. He does like it for its look at 1970s New Orleans. And it's almost an homage to blaxploitation films, which is the part that I don't dig about it. But for Mike, that's a selling point. So
you don't think it's dynamite?
I don't dig it.
It's not right on?
Can you dig it? No, I don't. No, I can't. So it's
Or talk about Live and Let Die.
Shut your mouth. It's still a good film, still a fun film, but again, there's just so many more that I will turn to first, and a lot of it has to do with that villain death. Oh, man. Oh, man. But it does have sharks, which is cool. But, yeah, it's not enough to bring me back.
I question your judgment, Honky.
I'm so sorry.
So what do you have at number 18, sir?
Moving on to number 18. This one is another one that I feared was going to be much higher on your list than mine. It's still a good movie, don't get me wrong, and I love saying the title. The title's fun to say.
Oh, God, you're going to make me cry again.
But when I go back and watch this movie, there's not enough there. And you talk about movies that are easy to tune out. And I found myself, when I was rewatching these movies, for this purpose, for this episode, just to make sure that I was fresh on all of them, this is one that I tuned out the most of. There were several times that I actually had to rewind because I was like, wait, I missed something, because like all of a sudden my attention was wandering somewhere else. And because I wanted to, do due diligence and watch the entire film, I did rewind a few times to like catch what I missed, and then I realized why I was losing interest, because it wasn't holding my attention.
So you were losing interest because you were losing interest.
Exactly. cyclical reasoning. Circular reasoning works because circular reasoning works, okay? So my number 18, much to your dismay, I hear, Octopussy.
I question your judgment 8 times.
It's just, like I said, I love the film. I do. I love all these films, especially, like, we're already into the part where, like, I will watch any of these movies at the drop of a hat. It's just...
At the drop of a hat or the toss of a hat?
Either way.
Ha.
We haven't gotten to that one yet on either of us.
I don't think we'll get to that for a while. That's just a guess.
I would hope not. But, yeah, for me, as fun a movie as it is, and as fun a movie as it is to say, Octopussy just doesn't quite do it for me as much as, well, 17 others do.
Wow. Just wow.
Our lists
there is a lot more judgment
questioning
so far than I thought there would be.
I know, I thought our list would be a little, like, our lists are never synced. Every now and then we'll have like one or two that hit either on the same spot or close to it.
And usually it's either the bottom, the top, or some really bizarre ass.
Yeah, it's like spot. Random, like 14 for some reason. But yeah. So there you go.
Wow. Just wow.
Sorry.
I severely question your judgment, sir.
Wow, severely. Uh-oh. Well, we'll hear more about that then. So then I believe that puts us to your number 18. What do you have there?
One where Eric is probably thinking, okay, when is he finally going to let me off the hook with this thing? But, yes. Eventually, we knew we had to get to my number 18, Never Say Never Again.
I still cannot even fathom how it's that high on your list.
Eric, let me ask you a question.
Oh, no.
It's a series of questions, but it's the same question. Whose idea was it to watch Zardoz?
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Whose idea was it to watch The Vengeance of Fu Manchu? Whose idea was it to watch Mercenary Laser Mission? And whose idea was it to watch CIA Codename Alexa? Do you notice a pattern here?
All right. Fair enough.
I like bad movies just as much as I like good movies. And Never Say Never Again is that really rare animal that is very, very, very hard to find. And I don't think it was done this way intentionally. And I think it was trying to get some humor in it, but I don't think it was trying to reach the point of straight-faced spoof. But that's exactly what this is to be. I know Kevin McClory was thinking, this is finally my payday. This is what I've been suing for decades. But, well, not quite decade and a half about, but...
Decade-ish.
Yeah. But the final analysis, if you watch it from the perspective of, this is a spoof where they're not laughing at their own jokes, except when Rowan Atkinson shows up in his big screen debut as Nigel Small Fawcett. I thought that was brilliant, by the way.
Drip.
Having the naughty name be a man. But, come on. The disco porno dance scene in the yacht, that is pricelessly funny. And on the flip side, the eternal domination of the world, that's just freaking awesome. The tango with Domino, that's just freaking awesome. And, I mean, yeah, it's a bad movie. And eventually you can't get past that. So it's got to stay low. I mean, Klaus Maria Brandauer was a terrible choice for Largo. On the other hand, at least you got to hear his own voice. And Max von Sydow, to this point, is my favorite Blofeld. So as bad as it is, as cheesy as it is, I do find myself reaching for this more often than I'll reach for Man with the Golden Gun, let's say. It's silly fun. So that's why Never Say Never Again and you will write a letter saying that I was the best lay you ever had before I shoot you in the balls is my number 18.
Oh, that almost makes it worse. The fact that you brought up the worst part as one of the best parts.
That's one of the funniest scenes ever.
Oh, kill me softly. Anyways, oh man. Okay, all right.
Oh,
so
it's turning out that this very special episode is the hosts just gently eviscerating each other. That's just great.
So at number 18, finally, Never Say Never Again.
Yes.
Very, very good, sir. Very good, sir. What do you have at number 17?
I question my own judgment at number 17.
What?
I do. I really do.
How does that even work?
Honestly thought this movie was going to be in the top 10.
Oh, okay.
I really did. Going into this, I was sure it was going to be. When I looked at my old list, it didn't quite crack the top 10, but it came close. But I specifically, this is one of the ones I made sure to watch again for this show. And as much as I enjoy so many parts of this, some of them are actually some of the most dynamite Bond moments in the entire series, I think. I love Bond. I think the girl worked out okay. I like the story, except it kind of lames out partway through and both of the villains just suck. I bet you know I am now that I'm going to say at number 17, much as it pains me to say it, it's The Living Daylights.
Wow, you're breaking my heart.
Mine too.
17?
I like this movie.
17?
We've reached the point where, like we said, this is all good stuff. I like the movie, but I hate Whitaker and I hate Koskov. And there are some parts, especially as we get toward the second half, where it just really slows down. And it's really easy to think, I could even do the dishes while this is playing. I never quite got that far, but I did put the dishes in the water to soak.
Like, I didn't actually wash them, but I did, get prepared
I watched
to.
them after the movie was done. But I mean, the point
I was
is,
actively
I didn't
thinking
press
of
pause
dishes
while I went into the kitchen
while
to do
this movie
that.
was playing. Wow. He's out. Now, I thought that my placement of that film would be a surprise to you, but I didn't think it would be that much of a surprise. So I'm kind of... My guests are flabbered.
All right. So with that in mind, what do you have at number 17, sir?
At my number 17 is one that I'm almost surprised has not been mentioned by either one of us yet. This is one
So you're surprised you didn't mention it already?
A little bit, only because I thought that this would fall below some of the others that I've already mentioned. When my first mindset of thinking about these films, I had a feeling that this one would actually fall very near the bottom of this. I knew it wasn't going to be any of the bottom three. Bottom three were pretty much set in stone. But I didn't think this would make it as high as 17 by any stretch of the imagination. But thinking about it again and thinking about some of the other movies, and, well, this is not a movie that I'm going to watch a lot. I'd still rather pull this one than some other ones. Even A View to a Kill or Live and Let Die. I'd still rather pull this one and watch it. And although Christmas may come only once a year, this is a movie that I think I can maybe watch more than once a year. So at my number 17 spot, The World Is Not Enough.
Fair. And I think I'm going to leave it at that at this point. Fair. I'm not going to question your judgment, sir.
Okay, all right. I was surprised it wasn't further down on your list, because I know that it's not one of your favorites. At least I think it's not one of your favorites. But it also wasn't bad enough to be included in the Abomination episode, so, you never know. It has its moments, but it was definitely the beginning of the steep decline of Brosnan's Bond.
You could call it the beginning if you want to, but we're going to have double standards showing up very soon. So.
All right. Fair enough. So that brings us to
your number 16.
My number 16, and this is one. I don't know if maybe it's the oversaturation, maybe because this storyline essentially appears multiple times.
Oh dear!
Throughout the franchise,
I'm surprised.
But this one, while still a good fun movie, it just, for me, it's one of the lesser Connery flicks. It definitely falls at the bottom of the barrel for me when I'm looking. If I were just to pull to my shelf of Connery Bonds and say, which one do I want to watch? Other than Never Say Never Again, this would be the second last one that I would turn to.
Wow, I couldn't do that math myself.
And so for my number 16, it's the movie that I almost feel they did better with Christian Slater and that crazy guy, and that is Thunderball. Still a fun movie, not knocking the movie, but it's far enough down on my list to be number 16.
Okay, this is not the one I thought it was going to be, so...
Oh, okay. You thought I was going somewhere else?
Yeah. With your description, I thought you were going somewhere else, but...
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And for those of you who are in the slow class, I believe he's talking about Broken Arrow.
Yes. Christian Slater and, I can't pull the
John
name.
Travolta.
John Travolta. I'm like, who's that crazy guy who can't pronounce names?
I tell you, your Thaden level is not very good right now.
It's horrible. Just gonna take my face off.
That's bad.
Just gotta stay alive, okay?
I think we should probably quit while we're behind that much.
All right. So that's my number 16. What, pray tell, is your number 16?
Well, my number 16, I am totally expecting you to question my judgment on, because obviously we don't see eye to eye on this one. my number 16 is Thunderball.
I question your oh no, I'm just kidding. Wow, all right. So it took us from 24 to 16 before we hit one on the head, but there it is.
And we always
folks.
get it's what we always it's a weird one. It's just some bizarre number in the middle.
Right? Well, but you know what? 16 right there in the middle. I didn't expect any of our middle ones to really be the one that would do it. So it's a good call. Good call.
Yeah, I have Thunderball this far down because on the one hand, it's one of the most professional spy plot movies out of the Bond series. Yeah, it jumps a shark, but on the other hand, it's still a very classic plot, which is why it's been redone so many times. And the final battle underwater was just groundbreaking and still is one of the best underwater fight scenes you'll see. It's really interesting to see the mechanics of how Spectre works at the beginning. And in fact, that's something I keep kicking myself because I always want to say, and a lot of Bond sources even say it, that A View to a Kill was the first time that Paris was ever used in a Bond film. And it is as a major location. But Paris was actually first used in a Bond film in Thunderball because that's where Spectre headquarters was. You even saw the Eiffel Tower in the background, and they filmed it in Paris. But you only got to see one exterior shot. But on the other hand, it also isn't as exciting as it could be. Felix is duller than crap. Largo's dubbing drives me insane. But hey, there's sharks. There's a pissing dog. I love Fiona Volpe. But... so yeah, Thunderball, my number 16.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I can't disagree. Placement is, it's perfect.
Imagine that. Now, for my number 15, I'm kind of shocked that this movie is as high up on the list as it was for me, and even for you, but I still find myself coming back to it more often than I can logically account for. And it's also odd that for the number of times that I've watched this movie since we've started doing this podcast and since I've done my website, which is before we started doing this podcast, this is the only Bond film I don't have a review up for as of today. It is also the first Bond film that I went to in a movie theater where I walked out thinking, oh man, the franchise is in trouble. And that is The World Is Not Enough. No, it's not one of my favorites in terms of and that's why I question my own judgment on this one, because Christmas Jones sucks, and we all know that. She's a punchline. In fact, she's the standard by which all other miscast characters in other movies are judged. Because whenever you see someone miscast now, I know the metaphor I use, and I've seen other people use it too, is are they as bad as or worse than Denise Richards as Christmas Jones playing a nuclear physicist? But as much as I don't like about this movie, I feel compelled to watch it regularly anyway. And so, despite my own judgment, my number 15 is The World Is Not Enough. All
right. That's not too far off. Only 2 spots different than me. And basically, I feel the same. It's like I feel like I'm supposed to hate it more than I actually do. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm looking at it especially with how much I don't like Die Another Day. I feel like I should like The World Is Not Enough less than I actually do. And there are plenty of reasons not to like it. But I think there's plenty of reasons to like it as well. And those are those what I end up focusing on. And again, I will grab it before I'll grab, Never Say Never Again for sure. So, there you go. There you have it.
And we'll be revisiting this theme with me very shortly as well. But first, we have your number 15.
For me, number 15, one that you already mentioned quite some time ago. In fact, the very first bombshell you dropped on this particular episode, Quantum of Solace. Well, definitely not my favoritist ever, and definitely not even the favorite Craig Bond film. I still feel it's way better than number 24. I mean, come on. But
I just can't watch it as a standalone film. If you watch it as a double feature, it is 10 times better.
I could understand that if I were going in from a place of having not seen any of the films. But the fact that I have seen Casino Royale many times, I can watch it by itself. if, I won't pick it over Casino Royale, obviously, because I haven't mentioned Casino Royale yet. But given the fact that at any given time, I'm probably no more than 3 or 4 months away from having seen Casino Royale. Casino Royale is one of those movies that's on my list of movies that I frequently rewatch. You got Casino Royale, you got Princess Bride, you've got the 1989 Batman. These are movies that I will continuously rewatch. I am almost never more than 3 months away from a viewing of any of those films. And if I ever go that long between watching one of those films, I feel compelled. It's like an addiction. I'm like, ooh, hey, you know what? It's been 4 months since I watched Princess Bride. What the heck's wrong with me? I'm going to pop that bad boy in.
Inconceivable!
Exactly. So, and Casino Royale falls among those. It really does. So for me, I can pick up Quantum of Solace at any time, and I'm not that far removed from having seen Casino Royale. So it still works for me. And since this is my list, I am putting it a little bit higher. Still not, top notch, and definitely even in the Craig era, the lesser Craig film, definitely, of the ones we've seen so far. So that's why I put it kind of right smack dab near the middle of the list, number 15, Quantum of Solace.
All right. I understand your reasoning. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. So then, what do you have at number 14, sir? Number 14 is one that, this one for me, is almost dead middle of the road. Like, straight up middle of the road film for me. I neither really like it or really dislike it. I'll watch it anytime it's on, and, I'll pop it in from time to time. But I don't have any strong feelings about this one. That's what's weird about this one for me, is like I didn't have any strong feelings about it either way. It really just felt straight up middle of the road for me. And so for that, it earns a place right in the middle. So my number 14, without any particular reasoning, is The Spy Who Loved Me. I'm kind of surprised. That it's I don't question your judgment, but I'm surprised that you describe it that way specifically. It's really weird. It's even weird to me to think about it that way, to be quite honest. I'm, kind of, I wouldn't say questioning my own judgment, but at the same time I'm kind of like, it's weird to me that that's how I feel about this film. But that's what it comes down to. There's nothing about that film that makes me specifically say, oh no, I'm not going to watch that because this. Or, ooh, I really want to watch this because this. For me, it just doesn't have either of those. But it's still a good film that I'll pick up and watch from time to time, and it's still one that I'll pick over some of these other ones. So, right there in the middle, number 14, Spy Who Loved Me. All right. So what's your number 14? My number 14 goes along a similar theme to what I had for number 15. It's a movie that I find very easy to dislike, except that when I'm randomly sampling my own behavior, I don't act like I dislike it. I don't consider it anything close to the best of the Bond films by far. In fact, it is a sign of trouble, the way that it goes. In fact, the originally cast villain stepped out after 3 days. They had to replace him because he said, no, this sucks. I'm out of here. Screw you guys. I'm going home. And that was Anthony Hopkins, by the way. But as many problems as I have with Tomorrow Never Dies, I still watch it fairly often. And so it's not horrible. It's not great. I really wish that they discarded the whole we have to force a love story angle in with Wei Lin. I didn't think it was necessary. That's the one big thing for me on that one. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. And Jonathan Pryce, he works and he doesn't. But kind of in that middle territory for me. Even though we're not in the numerical middle yet, it's close enough. Number 14, Tomorrow Never Dies. All right. And I will say, as we talked about during the Bond Girls episode, that Paris Carver has kind of grown on me over time. Yeah, I can agree with that. I'd like her to grow on me, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, no. No, and I can't question your judgment too much. I will say, obviously, I have it a little bit higher because it hasn't been mentioned yet, but not dramatically. And we're getting close to that halfway mark where everything now is very good. These are good movies that we want to watch on a regular basis. So nothing, we're not in bad film territory at all here. We really never have been. But, it's just one of those things. Keep that in mind as I tell you my number 13. Oh, no. I'm scared. Because I know this film is near and dear to your heart. Oh. And it's near and dear to mine, too. I question my own judgment. I'm surprised. And yet, for as good a movie as it is, and for as personal a place as it has, I just have to put pretty much squarely in the middle, because in a list of 24, 13 and 12 are squarely the middle.
Yeah.
For Your Eyes Only.
For your eyes only, only for you.
If you don't mind, I don't want to see you singing the song naked during the credits. Sheena Easton can do that all day. That's fine, but...
That's one of those songs that I feel like I shouldn't like, but if it comes on, I am singing along, I am jamming to it, and it is in my head for days.
Speaking of, side story here. I was, a couple of months ago, going out for a drive, and windows were down because the weather was just that kind of perfect, and so I'm driving down the road, and I got my Bond theme stuff going in the car, and Nobody Does It Better comes on. And yeah, I start singing along. It's the one Carly Simon song that guys who normally wouldn't listen to Carly Simon songs sing because it's a Bond song. And I actually had a guy from the sidewalk yell, "Are you effing kidding me, dude?"
You're like, nope.
Which I had to laugh at. But I actually had somebody question my judgment singing along to a Bond song from the sidewalk. And it's not like I was blasting, but I was stopped at a stoplight close enough to the sidewalk that, well, you know, windows were open anyway. But yes, we were talking about For Your Eyes Only, actually.
That's fantastic.
But what you said reminded me of that.
No, it's, yeah, we'll talk about that one a little bit more. Now, I don't question your judgment necessarily, because if I were to look at this if I didn't have my own sentimental attachment to that film, it probably would be much lower on my list, maybe down in the middle, maybe in that 12 or 13 range. So I can't really question your judgment on it. When we get up to my spot on the list for that one, I'll replay the story a little bit. I know I've talked about it before, but not everybody's heard the story, so
yeah, and I suspected that would happen, and I understand totally. It's just where I ended up with it. So that's my number 13.
Right. Totally.
So what is your 13, sir?
So for me, number 13 is one that especially when rewatching it, I really thought this one was going to end up way lower on the list. However, as I started really thinking, it kind of crept up to the middle. This is one that originally I just kind of thought, blah, it's got some fun moments, but blah. But there are some really awesome moments in this film, and for those, I kind of have to go ahead and give it some credit and bring it up just a little bit further on my list than maybe I originally intended for it to be. But it's one that I know a lot of diehard fans are probably going to question my judgment, because it's one that is usually mentioned as one of the better Bond films. But for me, kind of missed the mark on a lot of ways. But you do have La Bombay Surprise. So Diamonds Are Forever makes it to number 13 on my list.
I can't question your judgment too much. I'm actually a little surprised it made it this low for you, but I understand, and we'll get to that in a bit.
All right. So, yeah, that's where it falls for me.
So what about your number 12, sir?
Moving on to number 12, one that you have previously mentioned, one that I was very surprised was as low on your list, because I thought that I was going to have it even lower on my list than you. So this one, while it may be the first, that doesn't make it the best. Dr. No. For me, out of all the Bond films, even though it's the first, it's the one that set the stage for all the others to happen, it's still going to be the middle of the road for what I'm going to pick to watch. Definitely going to watch it.
But you know you're watching it because of the open pit nuclear reactor.
Well, of course. Why wouldn't I be? But yes, it's definitely middle of the road for me, I think. It has a lot of things, and it does, like I said, it really does set the stage for so many other Bond films. But I feel like those films outclass this one so much. So for me, it only made it even up to number 12, almost for nostalgia's sake. I mean, it definitely gained points just for being the first. And Ursula Andress doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. But for me, Dr. No, number 12.
I was going to question your judgment until you corrected yourself there.
Yeah. So that's my number 12. What do you have in the number 12 spot?
I think that this is going to completely shock you.
Ooh.
My number 12.
Shocked.
But even though it comes as quel bon surprise, yes, at number 12 I have, much to actually my own surprise, Diamonds Are Forever. And the reason I say that's to my own surprise is this is a really fun movie. I mean, Moonbuggy.
Winton Kid, man. Winton Kid. Like, that gained him like 3 spots on my list. Just those two.
Winton Kid are fantastic. And Moonbuggy. And Tart's Handkerchief. And Vegas, baby. I mean, and Jill St. John and Natalie Wood, both of whom have very brief nude shots if you are quick with your eyeballs. Just saying. No, it's a really fun movie. But it also has the dumbest Blofeld, and it has a silly plot, and not in the fun, silly way. It's just stupid, to be honest with you. But again, we're at the point where I'll take this movie over just about anything on the AFI Top 250 list any day. So that we're in the very good stuff at this point. We're in the top half.
Absolutely.
So it's just that I love the rest of the Bond series so much that this is so low, because I really do enjoy this movie. I have a lot of fun with it, even though Sean Connery is basically phoning it in, and he looks ridiculous in that short pink tie. But yeah, Diamonds Are Forever at number 12. Vegas, baby.
All right. So that brings us to numero 11. Almost
it does.
Top 10. That's we're getting there.
And this surprises me that it did not crack the top 10. I thought for sure that this one would, because again, it's so much fun. And I can tell you exactly why it doesn't. It's one of the same things that kept The Living Daylights down lower than where I would have originally thought it was going to be.
Still
and that
disappointed in you. I've gone beyond questioning your judgment on that one. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
That's okay. I'm disappointed in some of the choices you've already made as well, and as you'll see. But no, as much as I gotta dig Jaws on Jaws action, and as much as Nobody Does It Better, which I belted down the street, as much as I love The Pyramids, Spy Who Loved Me doesn't quite crack the top 10. It's still a lot of fun. I reach for it often. This is at least a couple times a year, but the villain just sucks. I mean, his henchman makes up for a lot, but the villain just sucks. So, Spy Who Loved Me, number 11.
All right. Yeah, it's not too far off. I only had that at 14, so we haven't reached the really desperate numbers yet.
But we have. You just don't know it yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm looking at the gaps because I'm kind of keeping track of what you had at what spots, and I'm seeing a big gap there of movies that you have not yet mentioned that are obviously way up on your list, and we're way down on mine. So I know there's still going to be some discussion.
Yes. But what we need to discuss now is your number 11, sir.
For my number 11, this is one that you already mentioned, and one of the hosts of one of the other Four-Eyed Radio members had also already mentioned, and that is You Only Live Twice. This one, I was a little surprised you had it as far down as 19, although it's only an 8-spot difference between my number 11. It still kind of surprised me a little bit, because this is one of those ones that it's one of the ones that jumps to my mind when I think of when we get to the top 10 and even the top 11. Really, these are the ones that really just jump to my mind immediately when I think I want to watch a Bond movie. There's certain movies that just pop into my head automatically without me even looking at the list, and this is one of those ones. This is one of those movies that I really feel has all those elements that I really want to have in a Bond movie. As Chris had said, it's got it all. You've got Bond dying and living again. Okay, whatever. You've got Little Nelly, which I love. It's not Little Nelly herself that I love so much. It's that you get to see her in action and Bond playing with her, basically. You got a Volcano Fort. I mean, come on.
Volcano Fort. Hey, I don't fault the Volcano Fort. I mean, yes, we had a big discussion about how the physics of it are all wrong, but
well, yes,
you love the Volcano Fort anyway.
But yeah,
and it's a Volcano Fort with a piranha moat.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you've got everything. Yes, Connery as a Japanese guy does not work. Nobody is fooled, especially since they did nothing to cover his Scottish accent. He was still Sean Connery. But you know what? That's all right. I'm okay with it. Doesn't bother me at all. And again, it's just one of those movies that when I'm thinking of watching a Bond flick, this is one of the ones that pops into my head right away without really any prompting of looking at the list. Other ones might get bumped up higher when I see the list and go, oh, yeah, I want to watch that. But that one's already in my mind before it even begins.
Fair enough. I don't agree, but I don't question your judgment either, because I totally get it. I totally understand. Like I said, like we said at the very beginning, that this is just a totally subjective list, and we do it again in 2 months. It's going to be different. I don't know how far you got in actually prepping for when we thought we were going to do this in May. But, I mean, I did do a full list, and it looks nothing like this one.
Yeah, it's amazing how different it got just rewatching stuff. Because I did a preliminary list before I went through and rewatched everything. And then I was surprised how much it changed just watching the films again. Especially, in short succession. Watching all 24 within basically a 2-week period. Which I've done before. Watched them all in that short a time period previously. So it's, it definitely brings different things to the forefront of your mind when you're watching them.
It'll be interesting to see when we decide to touch this list again.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should make it a 50-episode anniversary type of thing. Maybe episode 100 should be a redo of the list.
I was thinking that, but I don't know. I'm also wondering if we want to wait that long. But anyway, that's a long time in coming. We still have to do the rest of this list.
I know, right? I'm like, wait a minute, we're still working on this one here.
So that brings us to you cracking the top 10.
All right, cracking the top 10, and this is one that you haven't mentioned yet. So obviously, it has to be in your top 10 also. So finally, one that at least is in both of our top 10. This is another one that I just think personifies a Bond flick. It's one of those ones that I would definitely recommend to somebody if they were saying, hey, you know what, I want to watch a Bond movie. I've only ever watched the new ones, or I've never watched any. This is definitely going to be one of the first ones that I recommend to them. Not the first, but definitely one of. And it's got everything you want in a Bond flick. It really does. And it is, of course, From Russia with Love.
All right.
I mean, you've just got some great moments in this. You've got, Connery being Connery. It's not Connery's best even, but it's still Connery really good. It's not Connery at his worst, that's for sure. And I really dig it. It's one of those ones that I definitely can go back to time and time again.
Well, I'll have to say that I obviously severely question your judgment, sir, because my number 10 is From Russia with Love.
All right. Same one in the top 10 even. That's good news. It's amazing.
If anything, it surprises me it's only at number 10, but that just shows you how strong the series is, because this is a fantastic movie. This is one which, when it was originally conceived, it was considered to possibly be the first Bond movie. They decided against it, obviously, but when it was originally discussed, they were even talking about having Alfred Hitchcock direct it, which I think would have been very, very interesting. And the director they did get actually did a little bit of Hitchcock homage a few times as he was going along. But you've got just the very classic old world Cold War intrigue story. And you've got the Orient Express. You've got Istanbul, not Constantinople. Why did Constantinople get the works? That's something you're going to have to ask the Turks.
Nobody's business but the Turks, all right.
But it's just got so much cool stuff. This is classic 1960s Cold War intrigue with a Bond flavor. And Connery hasn't totally hit his stride, but he's definitely hitting his stride. I think if you're going to look for Connery hitting his best stride, that was actually Thunderball to me. Unfortunately, the rest of the cast didn't hit the stride at the same time he did. It's a problem a lot of couples have. But anyway, it's just such a great movie. So many iconic moments. And it's a snapshot in time that is timeless for the fact that it is a snapshot in a specific time, if that makes any sense. It's just a great spy story.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun film. It's got a great story behind it. It just works on many different levels, and I dig it.
Yeah. So number 10 for both of us, From Russia with Love, which brings us to my number 9.
Yes, indeed.
Where I think I'm going to break Eric's heart again.
Oh no, like I said, there's a lot of open space near the bottom of my list right now that you haven't mentioned yet. So.
No, this is one neither of us has mentioned, but I think it's still going to break your heart that I have it this low, which I think makes you know exactly which one it's going to be. I think if you do a little bit of mental math, there's only 3 I think that could fit in that category, and if you really think about it, there's only one it's really going to be. And as good a movie as it is, And in fact, if you ask a lot of people, they think that it's just one of the most fantastic movies ever. And yes, it is a fantastic movie. Cripes, it's in the top 10. And, it's a movie that I've watched multiple times a year ever since it's been out. And I watched it multiple times in the theater. However, I just can't get past what I have referred to many times on the show as the law-abiding citizen bullshit.
Oh, wow.
Which is why Skyfall, as wonderful and gorgeous a movie as it is, sits at number 9. Still in the top 10. Still a great movie. But I get so annoyed that the villain allegedly knows everything that's going to happen years and years in advance, to the point of who's going to be at what intersection at what second and where. No. I know we jump a lot of sharks in James Bond, but this is where I get off the train, is as far as too much shark jumping. So it's still good enough to be in the top 10, but I have to leave it at number 9.
Well, all right, okay. At least it's in the top 10. At least it's still in there. Okay.
You're disappointed in me.
Yeah, well, a little bit. But then again, I'm going to be even more disappointed because that means that you're pushing these ones that I have down at the bottom of my list even further up in your top 10. I'm looking at these empty gapes between my number 21 and 18. I'm like, oh, man, you got those at 8 and above at least already, and it could be even higher. Your number 1 could be in there somewhere. Oh, man. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. I believe that brings us to my number 9, though.
Yeah, I have a prediction.
Oh, really?
Don't tell me if this is correct, but the one that I just mentioned, it falls in my predictions of one that's going to be in your top 3. That's why I was so sure I'd be breaking your heart. So we'll see if I'm right.
All right. That's fair enough. Fair enough an assumption. We'll see how it turns out. But for now, we'll go with my number 9 spot.
And to go along with that, sorry, my other prediction is that we will only agree as far as in any placement of one of the top 3.
Really?
We'll find out, but that's my guess. But we'll see.
Well, yeah, because it's true that one that's almost guaranteed to be in my top 3 is one that doesn't have as much sentimental value for you, so it may not have cracked your top 3. I'm almost positive that one of my top 3 will at least be one of your top 3. That's really...
And I think that's where it's going to be, but we'll see.
So, yeah, indeed. All right, so my number 9 was one that I feared was going to be much, much further down your list, but was not. It was near the middle of your list, and not too many spots off from this. This is one that, while not as good and not as fun as its predecessor, still, for me, did not yet mark the decline. For me, it was more of a sophomore slump, if you will, for Brosnan, but I didn't think of it as bad. It was fun, it was campy, but it still had a Bondinosity to it that made it enjoyable, and I can still watch this one to this day above some other films. And that, of course, is Tomorrow Never Dies. So my number 9 is Tomorrow Never Dies.
Fair enough. I half expected that.
All right.
So I can't question your judgment at all. Like I said, it's one of those where it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. But I also understand how it's still a fun movie, and like I said, I watch it way more often than I'd expect to. So I get it. Number 9. I respect that.
So yeah, not too shabby. Again, it's not one that I personify as the best of the best, but it's still one that I turn to, and part of that, and in fact, a large part of that, is probably nostalgia talking. I mean, I'm not going to deny that, but at the same time, it's still a very enjoyable film for me.
All right. So what do you have at number 8, sir?
My number 8 is one that you mentioned a long time ago and really surprised me because I really felt that this one was going to be at least in the middle of your stack, if not in the top 10. I was actually very shocked because I really thought this one would be in your top 10 as well. And so for me, with Christopher Lee and that fun little fella playing Knick-Knack, gotta be the man with the golden gun.
I knew you were into midgets.
Oh, it's a fun film. Yes, it has its downsides. I mean, it's not perfect. But Christopher Lee makes up for nearly all of its imperfection, and it's just a good, fun film, and it's definitely one that I turn to on a regular basis. I know a lot of people have picked it apart, and rightfully so. I mean, it has its problems. I'm not going to deny that, but for the most part, I have to say I really dig it.
I understand, because like I said, Christopher Lee is great. If we could only have the short film of the parts with him in it, it would be a much, much better movie. Because those are also the parts where James Bond is more James Bond, whereas the other scenes, they're trying to make him harsh, and it just does not work. I get it. He's harsh and cruel in the books, but we'd already spent a long time at the movies determining that we didn't want that. So that's part of why it's so low. In fact, the way I look at it is even more of a jumble but it's a similar way to how I look at Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Because if you have just the parts in Bartertown, it's a great movie. Anti-Entity is awesome. Master Blaster's cool. So, okay, there we have Scaramanga and Nick. But as soon as you leave to Bartertown and do that whole Tomorrowland crap, then the rest of the movie sucks. And that's kind of where I have Man with the Golden Gun, except instead of having a first third and then you can shut it off, you have you have to sit through the whole damn thing in J.W. Peppa again besides. So
J.W. Peppa, no.
That's where I sit on it. I understand, but that's where I was coming from there.
Understood.
So I guess that brings us to my number 8.
Yes.
Which I think is going to surprise a lot of people that it's this low. Because, let's face it, out of the entire James Bond franchise, for any generation, but especially for a couple of them, this is, if you're going to say name a James Bond movie, if you take out the recency effect, then this is the first one almost everyone thinks of. I mean, this is the iconic James Bond movie. This is the one that established the formula, the real formula that the franchise would follow from there on out. And a little bit of side trivia, I know of more couples who have told me that this is the movie they saw on their first date. And they don't have to necessarily be of a generation, even though many of them are, to have seen it in the movie theater as their first date. But a lot of people saw it either on video as a first date or even on second run movies, because, that used to be a thing before the age of video where that would happen a lot. But I've known more people tell me that this was their first date movie than any other movie. And it is definitely the iconic Bond flick. And it's good, but for me, I have to put Goldfinger at number 8. Even though Pussy Galore. Because Pussy Galore. And just
okay. Well, you know what?
Pussy
at least
Galore.
It's in the top 10.
Yes.
I mean, on the bright side. But, yeah, I'm all right. I'm a little surprised. But, it happens, I guess.
I mean, I Pussy Galore what you're saying. But, just Pussy Galore.
All right.
So that's my number 8.
All right. Fair enough. So I believe that brings us on to numero 7, the coveted, for real this time, 007 position.
Yes, the coveted 007 position. And this is one of the ones you have personally been waiting for me to say. Because, let's face it, it's like following a cue ball, honky. This has always been one of my favorite Bond movies, from the word go. In fact, before I really decided that I was a definite James Bond franchise fan, I knew I loved this movie at the very least. And yes, I get all of its problems. And I still hate J.W. Peppa. And I still hate the stupid way Kananga dies. Those two things are why it is as far down as 007. Otherwise, it would be higher than that for me. Because I watch this movie a lot. And as I have become more of a student of classic film and really watched some of the old blaxploitation movies and done a little bit of the historical background on it, I can, for lack of a better term, I can dig this even more. Because, yeah, it's really easy for people, especially white people. I mean, and I hate using that term even, because that's like saying everybody who has a Caucasian skin tone is alike, which is just stupid. Just ask Germans and Poles if they think they're the same people. They don't. Everybody's different. Everybody's the same. we're all the human family. But in any case, the blaxploitation movement was actually a way for people who had been disenfranchised in Hollywood to finally get their voices out there. I mean, yeah, were they being taken advantage of sometimes by white-run studios? Sure, but nonetheless, they were getting their jobs, they were telling their stories, and so now we have James Bond as Shaft. And it's just a fun movie. And Jane Seymour was probably my first Bond girl crush. Oh my goodness, she was gorgeous in that film. Yeah, I just love this movie. So my honorary 007 spot goes to Live and Let Die, You Honky You. All right, I can dig it. All right, right on. Right on, right on. Relax, Jim. All right. So what do you have at number 7? My number 007 spot, which I'm glad that you haven't mentioned yet because at least it's in your top 7 here. This is one that gets a lot of hate. I will say this, even though it's just such a fun movie. But it does get a lot of hate because there are reasons to dislike this movie. There are some spectacularly cheesy things in this movie. And I question your judgment already. And given what this movie was originally intended to compete against, it's almost even more so. But for me, this is still one of the movies that I always am going to turn to when I want to watch a Bond flick. It's going to be a movie that I'm going to turn to on a regular basis. I'm never going to not want to watch this movie. It's always a fun movie. And of course, I'm talking about Bond in Space. Moonraker. Space. With the zombie lasers. Pew pew. Yes, it's cheesy, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay to be cheesy. It's a fantastic, fun film. And, you get Jaws. You even get the redemption of Jaws. Oh, man, how can you not love the redemption of Jaws? Jaws finds love. Oh, it's fantastic. I agree. It's fantastic. I question your judgment, sir. Because it's so low. I'm so sorry. Yes. But that is my number 7. All right. Which brings us beyond the coveted 007 spot to the top 6. So, what is your number 6, sir? For me, number 6 is one that I figured would be near the middle of yours, but I was very shocked at how low it was on your list, and specifically that it was lower on your list than one that you haven't mentioned yet. It is severely shocking to me that you've already mentioned this one, but yet it's Compatriot, which I felt was far worse than this one. Remember, this is a favorites list. It is not a best list. But, there's got to be some accounting for taste. But, yes. Haven't we had that discussion? So for me, this is a movie that I feel is severely underrated. This is a movie that I feel gets overlooked far too often. I mean, I talk to people who don't even realize that Timothy Dalton ever played Bond. And granted, the fact that he was only in 2, and one of them I felt was, subpar to begin with. But this one, his first one, The Living Daylights, I like this movie. This movie is fun to watch. And I will watch this movie many times and enjoy it quite a bit. I dug. It was kind of a darker take on Bond before the world was ready for a darker take on Bond, I think. Because now you see Daniel Craig on a darker take on Bond and everybody's eating it up. But Timothy Dalton comes along, tries to do it, and the world wasn't ready. They wanted a cheesy, campy Bond. And, I completely agree with you. I do agree with you. And that's just not what Dalton gave them. But what he did give us, I think, was fantastic, at least in this film. License to Kill, not so much for me. That one way down on the list. Like even watching them as a combo package, watching them together, maybe that's the problem. Maybe watching them together is the problem because just the difference is Night and Living Daylights. It's just such a huge, shocking difference between the quality levels for me in these two films. But for me, The Living Daylights definitely top 6 material. Number 6. All right, I do understand. I gave you my reasoning for why I had it so low, but I do understand because it is a fun movie, at least until he gets to Afghanistan and it kind of slows the hell down. But even then, there's still plenty of good stuff going on. So I get it. I do understand. I won't question your judgment, sir. All right. Now, with that said, you have already, just by just by implication, question my judgment on number 6, which is Timothy Dalton's other film, License to Kill, which I think is so much fun and I think is severely overlooked as one of the essential Bond stories. In fact, our fans who enjoy On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I would say to them that this is its companion piece, because what you have is, at the beginning of the movie, Felix going through exactly what Bond went through. The villain kills his wife right after they get married, except in this case, he also mauls Felix. And I think it's that specific thing of Bond reliving the death of Tracy that sets him off so much, that makes him say, you know what, screw you, M, I'm out of here. I have to take care of this vendetta. I think that is what sets him off. And I think that brings a really interesting depth of character to a story which, on its face, is a standard 80s narco movie, which I'm perfectly okay with, too, because I liked standard 80s narco movies. Marked for Death was awesome. Okay, that was 1990, but still. But I just really enjoy this movie. I mean, are there things that don't belong? Sure. I mean, Bond ordered a Bud Light. Ugh. But it's just a really enjoyable movie to watch from start to finish. And this is one where I intended to be working on other stuff while it was playing, but yeah, that lasted no time at all, because I didn't even get as far as starting anything else. I just sat down and I watched the whole thing. It's just, I love this movie. And this also has a sentimental place for me because I consider the summer of 1989 one of the most fun summers for movies ever. And I remember seeing License to Kill in the theater once a week for its entire run. And now, granted, this is back when movies cost only $2.50, so you could do that even if you didn't make a ton of money. But I just love this movie, and I keep coming back to it. And I also think it's one of the essential Bond stories. So that's why I have License to Kill at number 6.
All right. I can understand your reasoning. I still just have to disagree. I just think that Living Daylights was so much better, but I understand your reasoning. And License to Kill did have some good things. I think I would enjoy License to Kill as a movie if it wasn't a Bond movie. If you just change the names of the characters, I mean, it didn't have to be a Bond movie, because you had Bond basically saying, okay, well, I've got to go deal with this personal thing, so I'm not going to be Bond right now. That's essentially what he did. So, it's like, okay, and from this point forward, it's not even a Bond flick, because he's not MI6, he's not working for the government, he's just working for himself and his own vengeance.
But you still have Q, and
well, yeah, I mean,
you also get to be able to say, Wayne Newton in a Bond movie.
You did have Wayne Newton in the Bond flick. I do have to give you that. That did happen. That was a thing that happened. I don't know if that's a good thing that happened, but it is a thing that happened. I will give you that much.
Bless your heart.
Oh, but yeah, I can't fathom. I can understand putting it near the top of your list if Living Daylights was also there, but to have such a huge difference between the two and have them completely opposite of my difference between the two makes me sad.
That's what hurts you the most.
That's what makes me sad. No, it's all right. I'll get over it. This time,
I'll buy you chicken nachos when you're here.
Chicken. I love chickens.
You love chickens. Yes.
So we have your number 6. What cracks your top 5?
Number 5 is another one you've been waiting for.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know it's bad. I mean, I know it's flat out bad in lots of places. I don't care. It's not as fun as it could be because of the holding back. I don't care. I love A View to a Kill. I will always love A View to a Kill. It has been one of my favorite Bond movies from the first time I saw it in a theater. I love this movie. And I know Roger Moore is long in the tooth and he should have retired the movie before. I don't like Grace Jones either. And you did let Walkin' be Walkin'. But even before I learned to fall in love with San Francisco, as I have since then, I loved the location. I loved it when I picked up on that it's a remake of Goldfinger. I loved the comparison. It's just such a fun movie, and it is totally 80s. I mean, just dance into the fire, man. Just Duran Duran, yeah.
It's definitely 80s. That's for sure.
And I can't help it. I just love this movie, and I keep coming back to it, and I always crack a smile. It doesn't matter that I know it's critically not a great movie. It's got great moments, of course. We both acknowledge that. But it's just so much fun. I look past all the warts. It's just like people have been telling us to do with Honor Majesty's Secret Service, except in this case, I can actually do it because there's no Lazenby. So my number 5, Dance into the Fire with A View to a Kill.
I'm not going to question your judgment simply because I knew that one was going to be... That was the one that I knew for a fact was going to be a big difference between us, because I knew how much you liked that movie. And while it does have its moments for all those reasons you mentioned, it also... There's just too many problems to ignore, so I just can't get behind it fully. But no, I don't question your judgment because I know where you're coming from on it.
All right. I respect that. Thank you, sir. So what do you have at number 5? I think I know, and I think it's going to have a sentimental place in your heart, but we'll see if I'm right.
It does indeed, and this is one that I feared would be even further down on your list than it was. You had it squarely in the middle, which is fully respectable for me, so I'm okay with that. For me, my number 5 is actually the first Bond movie I ever saw. It's, for those who haven't heard the story, if you've listened to the show, you've probably heard the story. I think I've told it a couple of times. But when I was young, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I lived up in Flagstaff and in northern Arizona, and my grandmother lived down in the Phoenix metro area. And every summer, she would bring me down for a week and my brother down for a separate week. So we both got a week vacation just with Grandma and to hang out. Thing was, Tuesday nights was Grandma's skating night. And it was adult night at the skating rink, meaning seniors night, but that meant no kids, so she couldn't take me with her. And we were talking on the phone before I was coming down, the week before, and I was very concerned as to whatever was I going to do while she was off skating. You know, I was very concerned. I was 11 years old. I didn't have any clue what I was going to be able to do with myself for a single evening. I don't know. And so she was listing off all the movies that she had available for me to watch on her VCR. And she listed off a whole bunch of movies and at the end said, "For Your Eyes Only." And I thought, well, who else was I going to be bringing over? I don't know anybody near your house, Grandma. It didn't click for me that she was actually naming another movie. I thought she was explaining to me that all the movies that she just listed were for my eyes only, and that I wasn't allowed to let anyone else see them. So when I did get there and I looked at the movies on the shelf and said, "Oh, that's a movie," immediately I had to find out what this movie was about. And so I popped it in and I watched it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, even without knowing anything about the Bond universe at the time. I knew absolutely nothing about the Bond universe. I'd never seen any Bond films, never read any Bond books. It was just a movie to me, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's one to this day, it brings me back. You know, I watch that movie and I think about hanging out with my grandma and, you know, watching this movie while she was off skating, and, you know, so yeah, it definitely has a sentimental place in my heart, and that definitely brings it up further on the list than its quality alone would bring it. But I think number 5 solidly for me, For Your Eyes Only.
And I totally respect that. That's very cool. Awesome. So that brings us to your number 4, sir.
Coming down to number 4, this is one that you already mentioned, and I question your judgment slightly only because you had it so far down in your top 10. This is the movie that anybody who I talk to who has only seen the new Bonds, and they say, "I want to get into the old Bonds too. What should I watch?" This is the one I tell them to watch first. This is almost always my first recommendation to somebody who wants to explore, especially specifically if they want to say, I've never seen a Connery Bond. Which Connery Bond should I watch? Goldfinger. Goldfinger is the one you want to watch. First recommendation off my mouth every single time. If you're going to watch a Connery flick, Goldfinger's the one to do. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic how they were able to take the storyline from the book, and even though it's a crazy storyline and a crazy plot and it's wacky and it's just absolutely nuts, at least they made it a little bit more believable than the
Not
crazy
only
story
that, but
in
they
the book.
make fun of the Fleming plot in the book. Connery actually has a line saying how ridiculous it is.
Exactly. So it's just a fun film, and it really does personify everything that Bond should be. You know, you have the moments of the suaveness and the smoothness. You have the moments of the raw violence, and you have the crazy villain, the wacky side villain, the sidekick, henchman. You've got everything in this film. It's just absolutely fantastic. So, number 4 with a bullet, Goldfinger.
All right. So, brings us to my number 4. And I think I'm going to break your heart again.
There's only one really heartbreaking spot left. And again, this is one, if it's that one, it's one that I really had a feeling that you were going to have much higher than me anyway. So, might not terribly break my heart, but we'll see.
Oh, I think we're thinking it a little bit differently now.
Uh-oh.
Now, if we were doing a critical best list, if we were doing such a thing, this movie, I think, would be my number 2. But we're not. We're doing a favorites list. Therefore, my number 4 is the movie that basically the entire frickin' Four-Eyed Radio Network named as its favorite James Bond movie. So, we have, let's see, Eric Berry from the Ranger Command Power Hour. Joe Gangemi, I'm very sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, from Pitch Please. And then we have, let's see, Zach Zent from Geek Laser. And then we have Zach Jernigan from the War Pod. Then we have Zach Lavoie from the Ranger Command Power Hour. Carlisle Rice from Straight Outta Austin. Michael Turner from the Brothers Turner. And so many other people who have named GoldenEye as their favorite. It is my number 4. Now, out of all of the answers we got for it, I think the one that I like best is from Eric Berry from Ranger Command Power Hour and from Starfleet Escape Podcast. Those are shows about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Star Trek in its various incarnations, of course. You can check out all of the Four-Eyed Radio Network shows at foureyedradio.com. Mr. Berry said that GoldenEye is his favorite Bond film, and his memory is very similar to yours in that he watched it with his dad. They watched all the movies together, but he really first got into it when this movie came out. He thinks Pierce Brosnan makes a great Bond, his overall favorite, and he loved the GoldenEye video game as a milestone first-person shooter, and he played it a lot when he was younger. So that was Eric Berry's answer, and there was very similar answers given by pretty much the entire Four-Eyed Radio Network. They often mention the game. In fact, Joe from Pitch Please added F Oddjob, who of course didn't appear in the movie, but he did appear in the video game. Now, as far as the movie is concerned, I remember when this came out in the theater and everyone breathed a sigh of relief because this is when people honestly wondered if the franchise was dead. Yeah. Because after License to Kill, you had a 6-year gap between movies and you'd had the Who's Gonna Play Him, and they finally got the Bond that they wanted when Timothy Dalton originally took the job. They'd wanted Pierce Brosnan in the first place, finally got him. And this is, to me, he hit his stride first time out, and this is the one time he's having total fun with the character. It's a great story. I mean, yeah, when we get to the gigantic Arecibo radio telescope having to be the controller for the GoldenEye satellite, it gets a little scientifically ridiculous, but we don't care because it's a great location. And it's a fun story. We get Sean Bean, who many thought could also have been a James Bond, at least playing a rogue 00. Yeah. We have Xenia Onatopp going to derail us.
Yes.
And we just have so many fun things. And it's just a great, great Bond movie. And when it comes to what would I recommend for people to watch, in terms of if they're just starting out with the James Bond series, if I were to give them 3 movies, this would be one of them, Goldfinger would be another, and we have a player to be named later as the other one. All right. So my number 4, and the number 1 of almost the entire Four-Eyed Radio Network, is GoldenEye.
All right. Well, I'm just glad that it wasn't like down near the bottom of your list. I'll just say that, because things could be worse, I'll say.
They could be indeed. And that brings us to my number 3. And again, if this were a critical best list, this would be my number 1. but it is not a critical best list. It is a favorites list. That said, have I watched it 2 to 3 times a year, every year, since it came out in a theater? Yes, I have. In fact, I watched it 4 times in a theater when it came out. And that was when it wasn't $2.50 to watch a movie anymore.
Right.
And this is the last answer that we got from another person in the 4-Eyed Radio Network. And that was from John Neal from Fern's Sorry for Partying. And he says this definitely shines a new light on how a Bond should be. And that, of course, is Casino Royale, the hard reboot of the James Bond franchise with Daniel Craig taking over the role. And we see him as he first becomes a 00. We see him on his first mission. We see him fail almost and then just redeem himself. I only really can find one hole in the entire plot because honestly, at the embassy shootout, there's absolutely no reason anyone should know he was a British agent. He got away cleanly, and his face was not on the camera. So there is nothing that should have tied him. I mean, yes, M should have yelled at him for doing that because she would have known. But that he was identified in public as a British agent made no sense to me. But other than that, honestly, I think it's flawlessly plotted. I think it's very well acted. And if you're looking for the best espionage movie, I think that you have this as a strong candidate in the entire genre as just best espionage movie ever. It's just a great, great movie. And from a critical standpoint, I do think it's the best in the series. But, and from an enjoyability standpoint, it's still my number 3. It's a great flick. It's just not quite as fun for me as 2 other ones. So that is my number 3, Casino Royale with Daniel Craig.
All right. So that brings us to my number 3, which is I don't imagine that anybody, well, obviously if you're paying attention, you already know which 3 are my top 3. The question is, in what order are they? And I don't think my top 3 are any surprise to anyone, really. Just in listening to the show, if you haven't picked up that these 3 films are among my favorites, not just of the Bond franchise, but favorite films of all time, then you'll know what these are. I'm curious if the order will surprise you at all in particular, but probably not. Probably not too much. Maybe a little, but not enough. But for me, number 3, obviously you've already mentioned all 3 of these films, but for me, number 3 is one that it kind of surprised me you had so far down. The other ones were only off by a few spots, so not a big deal, but this one you had quite a bit further down, and I get your gripes about it. But for me, this movie just all around still so phenomenal. And I love the way that they're able to work in a little bit of the old Bond without making it cheesy and horrible, like when they tried to work in a lot of the old Bond into Die Another Day. In this case, they were able to put in just a few little touches, little throwbacks that made you reminiscent of the best of the previous Bond without coming over the top cheesy with it. And for that reason, I think as a Bond fan, this is one of the first films that I'm going to grab. And yes, it is the most recent Bond film as well, which doesn't hurt its case in this particular situation. But for me, Skyfall is definitely the top 3, number 3 on my list. I think you have a fantastic villain, even if he's too smart for his own good. I think you have an amazing dramatic shootout. You have just fantastic action scenes, great acting all around. And I love the little throwback here and there. You know, the car, the Aston Martin from Goldfinger, right there. Just a little thing here and there that make it just all that much more enjoyable to watch as a Bond fan, but don't distract from it as a standalone film. So you can watch this as a standalone film, not having even seen any of the other Bond films, and you won't feel like you're being left out of an inside joke because they're just so small that they're not, in your face like, oh, if you don't know what we're talking about, you don't get it. And I love that. I think they did it right. And so for me, number 3, Skyfall.
I don't question your judgment. I understand. I like Silva. I love Javier Bardem's performance. It's just, I think if I had never seen the movie Law Abiding Citizen, I wouldn't dislike this as much. But I hate that movie so much. And this pulls exactly the same thing, only it does it worse. Actually worse. That it just drives me nuts, and that's why I brought it further down. And I think also it's a little less of a standalone story. I mean, it is standalone. It's way more standalone than Quantum of Solace. And I reach for it a lot, but I don't question your judgment. I understand. It's a great movie. I mean, really, when you're looking at our top 13, I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs.
Exactly.
And below the top 13, it's really skinning teeth. So it's not that much. So I get it. I understand. And I respect that. So your number 3, Skyfall. Cool. And that brings us to our top 2 each.
The number 1 and number 2.
And I know at least one of mine is making you completely cringe. And the other one, you had to know. I mean, you just had to know.
Yeah. There was one the one I assumed would be at least in your top 4. So it doesn't surprise me that it's in your top 2. The other one I knew would be higher on your list than on mine. I didn't quite realize how much difference there would be. But, so there it is.
So how do we want to do this?
Well, since this is just a straight-up list and anybody actually paying attention will know what the top 2 are at this point, instead of, why don't we reverse the top 2 as we do when that's the case, so that way we don't give away number 1 without any fanfare. We'll just jump right to it.
So who wants to do number 1 first, and then should we do our own number 2 right away, or give us each our number 1 and then our number 2s?
Yeah, let's just do 1 and 2, since they're not the same, since we know they're not the same.
Right.
We've each talked about each other's top 2 already, so you want to go first?
All right. I think that Eric knows already at this point what it has to be, and I think he may have suspected. I'm going to guess that your initial suspicions before we started the show were that my number 1 was either going to be Casino Royale or the one I'm actually going to say. That's my guess. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're pretty spot on.
Just like what the 2 you've got left were the 2 I knew would be at your top.
Yeah.
I thought Skyfall might make it to your top 2, but I figured no, it'll be up there. I knew you'd have it higher than me, but I had a real suspicion of your top 2. And I still don't know what order they're going to go in. I think I know, but I'm not 100%. Whereas for mine, I think anyone who has listened to the show long enough, and especially the people who have clued in that I love cheesy movies, know that when I reach for a Bond movie just at random, and I just want to have fun, that's no Volcano Fort. It's a space station.
Pew, pew, pew.
Zomchi laser. Yes, folks, it is Moonraker. James Bond in space, which is what, just in side commentary from many of our Fern hosts, what they considered often one of the worst Bond movies. But I love this movie. It is fantastic. It combines so much of what I love. It's a straight-up great action movie. It's a James Bond movie. It's a sci-fi movie. It's a comedy. It's got chase scenes. It's got lasers. It's just, it's awesome. It's just fun. It makes me feel like a kid. I love this movie. It just makes me smile. Everything about this movie makes me smile. It's just such a fantastic romp. It's just a joy to watch. In fact, there are some times where I automatically want to reach for this movie, and I'm thinking, you know what? Tonight doesn't deserve a movie this fun. So I hold off because I like it that much. But I don't hold off for very long. So just for the pure 100% entertainment value, not just 107%
110%.
Entertainment value, I have to pick Moonraker as my favorite James Bond film.
All right. I knew it was going to be way up there. I knew. Because we've had this discussion before. When we talked about Moonraker, you even had said that it's one of the first ones you grab off the shelf if you just want to watch a Bond movie. So it not shocking at all. And I don't question your judgment. Obviously, I had it a little bit lower, but not drastically. It had my 007 spot, so still top 10 material there. And yes, it does get a lot of hate for being cheesy, and the idea that they could put that out as an attempt at direct competition to Star Wars is just absolutely ludicrous. But, it is what it is. You take that aspect out of it, it's just a great movie. It's just a great, fun movie.
It really is. It's a blast. It's just fun. I'm getting giddy again just thinking about it. And our episode where we talked about this was one of the most fun ones for me that we ever did, because I just had so much fun talking about this movie and Sanji lasers and pew pew pew. And it probably makes me sound way younger than I am right now, but it's just, I love this movie. So yes, Moonraker, obviously, because I'm talking like an idiot right now, because I'm just my absolute favorite for entertainment value.
All right.
Which means my number 2, for which I severely questioned your judgment, not just once, but 8 times, when you had it so low on your list.
I got octo-questioned.
However, I can't really question your judgment, even though I am, and I did. But, like you said, double standards. They were going to show up. I think they've shown up already, but, you know. My number 2, obviously, for anyone who's been paying attention, and for anyone who may have drifted off but still caught the last joke, is Octopussy. Yes, Eric's favorite movie to say, Octopussy. If only this had been the 3rd movie, it would have been Octopussy galore. However, no. When I first saw this movie in a theater, I was just kind of meh about it. It is only in the last, say, 5 or 6 years that I've really developed an appreciation for this movie. Ask me this question 10 years ago, and I would have put it somewhere in the middle, maybe even the low middle. But over the past few years, I've really come to appreciate it as one, Roger Moore's last really good Bond movie. Because I don't hate on Roger Moore. I like Roger Moore. In fact, for those who remember, he's my favorite Bond. I understand the problems with him, and I don't think he's the technical best, but as far as favorite goes, I love this as not only one of his better performances, and this is one where he has to rely more on acting because physically he's not where he was back when he made Live and Let Die. But you also have, to me, one of the most intriguing Bond women, and this is the one where I've presented my own theory where I think this is not only where Roger Moore should have said he was done, but where the series could have had a reboot after this point, and Bond could have retired and run off with Octopussy. In fact, I have another theory that involves her that you could do later, but we might discuss that in a later episode. But I also appreciate this as a great Cold War movie because you have Soviet versus the West, but in the typical Bond fashion that Cubby Broccoli decided to use, because this was not how Ian Fleming approached things. Ian Fleming's books are very much anti-communist, anti-Soviet. They're the bad guys for almost all of them. And even Spectre, he suggests, has red leanings. But in the Cubby Broccoli version of things, of course, he's rarely in direct conflict with the Soviet Union. And when he is, like in this movie, it's through a proxy. And in this case, it's a rogue Soviet general. And it ends up being the Soviets who run him down. But I love the Cold War story. And I think it's surprisingly plausible. And I love that they used India as a location. I mean, the grand jewel of the old British Empire finally shows up. There's just so much goodness here, so much quality. And it's something I've really learned to appreciate over the last few years. And in fact, this is one where the last time I was in San Francisco and they were playing this in the hotel, I stuck around at the lobby until the movie was done just to watch the movie. I forewent my plans for a little bit because I just couldn't walk away from it. I enjoy this movie so much. So I understand how this doesn't quite fly for everyone, but I really dig this movie. So my number 2, Octopussy.
All right. Well, I can't question your reasoning. It's just a matter of, for me, it's not one that I immediately turned to. So it did end up much further down on the list. But, that's why we do these, to look at these differences and discuss them. So I love it. Love it.
Yeah, would it be any fun if we agreed on everything? I mean, aside from number 16 and number 10. I mean,
we had 2 on the same list. That's actually fairly rare. Usually, if we have any, it's 1. So 2 on the same list, and 1 even in the top 10. So hey, that's good.
Yeah. Which brings us to your number 1 and number 2, sir.
So my final 2 are of no surprise to anyone. Both of them in the newer realm of the films.
But is Xenia on a top?
Of course she is. How could she be not? Oh, for me, GoldenEye is still the gold standard for Bond films for me. When I want to watch a movie, even just as an example, when I was rewatching all of these movies specifically for this episode, I actually watched GoldenEye twice during my screenings of these films. It was the only one that I watched twice, and because I wasn't watching them just in order. I watched some in order. I tried to watch them in groups at least, but for the most part, I was just kind of watching them. You know, I was kind of testing myself to see, okay, in which order do I want to watch these films? You know, knowing that I'm going to watch all of them, which ones do I want to see first, and which ones do I want to put off until last? And I ended up at one point, I used GoldenEye as kind of a palate cleanser after having watched Never Say Never Again. I had already watched GoldenEye once, like 3 days prior, and then I watched Thunderball and Never Say Never Again, and then I just had to watch GoldenEye again. So for me, it's always going to be number one on the list of just which one do I want to watch, and it's just so much fun. I mean, you've got Brosnan actually enjoying the part, being good at it. You've got a decent storyline. Yes, they don't need that giant... You don't have to have a gigantic satellite dish to control a satellite. That's not the way it works. You use gigantic satellite dishes to pick up weak signals from far away, not a satellite that's right there. But, you know, not everybody knew that. And you know, especially when that movie was made, people thought of satellites as something that needed these gigantic dishes to control. So only the people who knew about them would know that. So I can
only people who knew would know?
Exactly. You know, again, circular reasoning works because circular reasoning works.
Makes sense.
But yeah, it's still just one of those films that I can always go back to. And of course, Famke Janssen, one of my childhood crushes who I still find just perfect in every way. Does not hurt the case at all for this film. It's just all around fun. I just love it from start to finish. Even with Jack Wade, who is not my favorite character, I would have much rather seen them bring in Felix instead of bringing in just some other random CIA guy who just, you know, hey, we're gonna portray you as everything that everybody hates about America. That's you, okay? But even still, you know, they used him just enough, I think, to get away with it. And, you know, I was okay with it.
So I still think they shouldn't have left him with the car.
That was a little disappointing. Having Bond have a car that he only drove for like 2 seconds and then gave to the CIA guy. I was like, wait, why was there such a big hub? Everybody was so upset that BMW got the licensing rights instead of Aston Martin, and then you barely see the car, so what does it matter? Not that it really mattered to begin with. Everybody's like, oh, it has to be an Aston Martin. Well, he's also driven an AMC and Lotus. And, you know, why does it have to be an Aston Martin? He's driven other cars. Drove a Mustang for crying out loud. You think you can get away with a BMW. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic film from start to finish. And obviously, the majority of the 4-Eyed Radio Network agrees with me. The game was also fantastic. Definitely, you know, I've never been a huge video game guy. I like them. I enjoy them from time to time, but I've never been deep into it. But I sank hours and hours into GoldenEye, both on the solo missions and playing multiplayer with my friends. Having that one little corner of us. You're only playing on like a 20-inch TV, and all you've got is one little corner of it. But it was still so awesome, so much fun. If you get your hand on the Moonraker laser, one-shot kill. If you got your hand on the golden gun, was also a one-shot kill, but it only held one bullet, so you could only use it once. But the Moonraker laser, oh man, when you got that, it was like you turned on God mode. Oh, it's fantastic. That was the BFG of the game right there, that Moonraker laser. Just so many great memories from that film, both of seeing it in the this was the first Bond movie that I actually saw in the theaters. It was my first introduction to the Bond universe as the Bond universe, as opposed to just a movie that happened to be a Bond movie. This I knew going in. I'm like, oh hey, they're bringing Bond back. All right, I'm on board. Let's go watch this. Yeah, just. I might watch it again tonight. It's fantastic. Just love this movie. And, of course, that leaves my number 2, the only one I haven't mentioned yet, your number 3, Casino Royale. Just absolutely, for me, probably the best translation of book to film. Not necessarily the truest translation of book to film, but I think the best translation of book to film. I think it kept the best aspects of the book while making it modern enough for current audiences, but still keeping true to the feel of the book. Whereas with a lot of the other ones, On Her Majesty's Secret Service does a fantastic job of translating book to screenplay. But I don't think it didn't end up making a good movie, in my opinion. Lazenby had a big part to do with that. But I think Casino Royale, you take the best of the book and change only what was necessary to really make it fitting for a modern audience, and boom, you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So my number 2 for many, many reasons, Casino Royale.
All right. I certainly can't question your judgment there. Though, that does bring up an episode that we will be doing very soon. As our regular listeners know, we recently had our Question Judgment contest, which led to 2 very, very interesting discussions where we were asked by members of our audience to revisit 2 007 films that we had talked about earlier, where our judgment was questioned. In one case, where our judgment really was questioned of, you really need to look at this again, it's a better movie than you thought. And another one was, yes, I know the movie sucks, but try looking at it this way. Mm-hmm. And I think that, at least for me, that did have an impact on this list. But now, what we're going to be doing is turning that around, and Eric and I will be questioning our own judgments in not the next episode or the episode after that, but the last episode we do before the release of Spectre will be our questioned judgments, where Eric questions my judgment about one movie, I question his about another, and we go from there. So look forward to that in the future.
All right. I think I already have in my head, I think, the one that I might pick. Not 100% yet, but I have a feeling where I'm leaning right now.
I have a bet about what you're going to pick for me, and you are not going to see what I have picked for you coming because, because.
Because reasons.
Well, if I told you the reason, you would then know exactly what I'm picking.
Okay.
So I'll leave that for an off-the-air discussion. But the next 2 episodes that our audiences can look forward to are, we will lead them on a merry chase, where we do a list of our favorite chase scenes from the 007 movies. And then we will be having an episode of Mortal Kombat! Yes, where we discuss the fight scenes of 007. Then we will have our question judgments, The Revenge. In fact, that will be releasing right on the premiere date for Spectre in the UK, or real close to that. And then we will be following that up with our Spectre episode.
The Spectre Spectacular.
Indeed. In fact, we may drop that one early. We'll see. Because we will be going to the movie the first time we're able to. We're going to be recording together in the same room right after that. So you will be, and what we promise to do for the Spectre episode, we will be spoiler-free for at least 20 minutes. So even if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can listen to our episode and we will tell you when to stop. And then you can watch the movie and you can listen to the rest of it, because it's what we do. So for the first 20 minutes, we'll be spoiler-free. After that, we're going to spoil the crap out of it. So just letting you know.
Fair warning, and we will of course mention that in the beginning of the episode too. That hey, we're going to do 20 minutes here of just discussion that doesn't spoil it, and we'll hit a mark where we'll tell you here's the point where you want to shut it off and go watch the film if you haven't yet.
Yes, but then we do ask you to turn it back on.
Yeah.
But before that, don't forget to enter our latest contest, which is our fan appreciation contest. All you have to do is go to hermajestiespod.com/contest, answer 3 questions. Those questions being, what is your favorite episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast thus far? 2, what do you like best about our show overall? And 3, which one of our lists would you like us to revisit or redo first after the release of Spectre? Just put that information in, along with your full real name and your real address, which we will only use for identification and prize sending purposes, should you be one of our top secret number of top secret winners. And we will be closing that contest out at the end of the day on Halloween 2015. So October 31st, 2015 is your last date to enter. We will be choosing the winners within a week of that, and then we will be airing the results of that contest sometime after. So that's what you have to look forward to. any final thoughts on our very special Her Majesty's Secret Podcast number 50?
Oh, man, it's just been a long time in coming. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to it. A lot of people were just surprised they hadn't found it yet. One of the comments we got was, I was just looking for, you do all these lists, but I don't see a list of just your favorites. Where's that at? Well, it's here now. We did it. Finally, we wanted to make sure that it was a good one. And we hope that we've delivered on that. I think we have, but you guys can be the judge of that. And as always, if you question our judgment on any of these choices, or you agree with us on any of our choices, either way, we want to hear from you. Let us know. Drop us a line. We've got the comment form over on the website at hermajestiespod.com on this episode. You can also Facebook us at facebook.com/hermajestiespod. You can tweet us at hermajestiespod. You can tweet me at Eric J. Dewey, or drop me an email at eric@foureyedradio.com.
You can tweet me at cinemaotr. You can drop me an email at ziggy@cinemaontherocks.com. Also visit my site, cinemaontherocks.com, where I reviewed all of the Bond films except for one, and if you were paying attention to the list, you know which one that is. I have no idea why. I've watched it a lot of times since I started the site. I just never get to write the review, and I'm kind of behind as it is on other things there too. But check out all the reviews, and if you're curious about how I think, if you go to the lists section, you can look at my 18 essentials list that I did in 2012 and 2014. It's a biannual list of the 18 movies I would prefer to be left on a lifeboat with for 2 years. Not that I want to be left on a lifeboat 2 years, but if I were, I'd want these 18 films with me. So it's kind of a interesting analog to the list here, and I think it should come as a surprise to no one now which 2 James Bond films I have on those lists. You could have figured it out that way. But anyway, that will do it for this very special episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast. So we thank you very much for listening for all of these episodes, and we're going to be around for many, many, many more. So we appreciate your continued support. That's why we have our fan appreciation contest for you to enter. But for right now, I'm Ziggy Berkeley.
And I'm Eric Dewey.
And you have been listening to Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. You love chickens.